This championship belt is holding up my championship pants.
Okay, who told you about my date?
Doesn't matter. I know all about Greg Turbo.
When your dad is the big show, you'd think no one could possibly outgrow his shadow. But his daughter just might be proving otherwise. Forget everything you knew about wrestling legacies, because this next-generation powerhouse is redefining what it means to stand tall, both literally and figuratively. She's got the size, the presence, and the confidence that even her 7-foot-tall father can't help but marvel at. But just how big has Big Show's daughter become? And could she be the one to take her father's throne someday? Stick around, because what you're about to find out will blow your mind. The Making of a Giant, Paul Wight's Unbelievable Rise. Paul Wight entered the world on February 8, 1972, in Aiken, South Carolina. And from day one, he was anything but ordinary. Born with acromegaly, a rare endocrine disorder that causes abnormal growth, Paul's body began expanding at a pace no one could control. By the time most kids were learning to ride bikes, he was already a 6'2", 220-pound preteen with chest hair. His size wasn't just noticeable, it was life-altering. By his early teens, Paul towered over his teachers, and even the doctors were stunned. Eventually, in the early 90s, surgeons successfully operated on his pituitary gland to slow the rapid growth, finally giving him some control over his own body. But even then, he remained larger than life, a 7-foot-tall, 383-pound man with a 64-inch chest, a size 22 ring, and feet that required custom 22.5E shoes. Ordinary life was impossible. Aeroplanes didn't fit him. Rental cars were jokes. So, in true Big Show fashion, he leased a tour bus, complete with his own driver, just to make everyday travel manageable. Growing up in Batesburg-Leesville, South Carolina, Wight quickly realized that being the big kid could be both a blessing and a curse. At W. Wyman King Academy, he was a natural athlete, a dominant center in basketball, and a tight end in football. But after a fallout with his coach during freshman year, he walked away from the team and, out of pure spite, joined the cheerleading squad instead. That decision turned out to be one of the best of his life. While his teammates sweated it out on cramped buses, Paul was cruising in a van full of cheerleaders, guided by a chain-smoking mom who was deaf in one ear. Later, he described it as the greatest experience of my life. After high school, Wight continued his basketball journey at Northern Oklahoma Junior College, where he averaged 14 points and 6.5 rebounds per game, numbers that earned him all conference honors. He led his team to win their division in the Oklahoma Bi-State Conference before transferring to Wichita State University for the 1991-92 season. He wasn't done yet. By 1992, Wight had moved to Southern Illinois University Edwardsville, joined the fraternity Tau Kappa Epsilon, and scored 39 points in limited appearances for the Cougars. Everything pointed toward a future in basketball, but destiny had other plans. After college, he drifted between odd jobs, working as a bouncer, bounty hunter, and even answering phones, until he finally listened to the calling he couldn't ignore: wrestling. He invested $5,000 into training at Larry Sharp's legendary Monster Factory, though his time there was cut short due to Sharp's illness. Minimal training and a lot of heart. That's what he took into his first match in December 1994 at a World Wrestling Association show in New Jersey, where he lost by countout. Still, his potential was unmistakable. His first shot at the World Wrestling Federation, WWF, fizzled out, dismissed by a scout who assumed his audition tape belonged to someone else. But fate stepped in through an unlikely connection. While working at a karaoke company, he met radio personality Danny Bonaduce, who introduced him to none other than Hulk Hogan. Hogan saw charisma in the towering young man and connected him with WCW executive Eric Bischoff. That introduction changed everything. In 1995, Paul Wight officially signed with World Championship Wrestling, WCW. And just like that, the Giant was born, billed as the son of Andre the Giant. From the Giant to the Big Show, wrestling's towering evolution. Paul Wight's professional debut came at WCW's Slamboree, 1995, marking the start of one of wrestling's most dominant careers. Later that year, he headlined Halloween Havoc, facing off against Hulk Hogan for the WCW World Heavyweight Championship and won by disqualification thanks to Jimmy Hart. The title was later voided, but the Giant had arrived. The crowd knew it. The locker room knew it. By 1996, he was unstoppable. Wight teamed with Ric Flair to take down Hogan and Randy Savage, claimed his first official WCW World Heavyweight Championship, and defended it against icons like Sting and Lex Luger. He was young, powerful, and commanding attention at every turn. But with WCW's chaotic storytelling, alliances shifted like sand. He soon joined the New World Order, NWO, drawn by money and fame, aligning with Scott Hall, Kevin Nash, and Hogan. But wrestling's most famous faction turned on him just months later. Betrayal after betrayal, feud after feud, Wight kept fighting his way through the madness. By 1999, he was tired of the politics, the pay gap, and the constant backstabbing behind the scenes. On his 27th birthday, he let his WCW contract expire. What came next was the leap that would define him forever. That February, at WWE's St. Valentine's Day Massacre, he crashed onto the scene, literally, bursting through the ring as Vince McMahon's secret weapon against Stone Cold Steve Austin. This time, he wasn't the Giant. He was the Big Show, and WWE fans had never seen anything like him. Within months, Big Show went from villain to fan favorite to champion, the face turns coming almost as fast as his victories. At Survivor Series 1999, he replaced an injured Stone Cold, defeated The Rock and Triple H, and became WWF champion. It was the kind of career milestone most wrestlers only dream about. But Big Show's story was never just about the gold belts. It was about evolution, constantly reinventing himself in a business that demanded it. He played comic roles like the Showster, mimicking Hulk Hogan's moves and even dressing like him, but could turn around and deliver a brutal rivalry against legends like The Undertaker, Kane, and The Rock. By 2002, he was drafted to Raw, then traded to SmackDown, where he did the unthinkable, defeating Brock Lesnar at Survivor Series to end his undefeated streak. The moment cemented his status as one of WWE's most dominant forces. Still, the toll of being the Big Show was catching up. The physical demands, the constant travel, the body slams, all of it started weighing heavier each year. By 2005, he decided to take a step back, focusing more on acting, television, and for the first time, his family. It was a rare moment of calm for a man whose life had been nothing but motion. Because while Paul Wight built his empire in the ring, it was outside of it, as a husband, father, and evolving man, that the real Giant finally found his peace. The dark side of being a giant. Big Show has always battled with his size, and not just inside the ring. For most of his life, Paul Wight's body wasn't just something he lived in. It was something he had to survive. Being 7 feet tall made him look unstoppable. But behind the muscle, the fame, and the giant persona was a man quietly struggling to make peace with the one thing that defined him the most: his body. What started as a casual conversation backstage would end up changing everything. No storyline, no script, just a real moment that pushed one of wrestling's biggest men to take control of his life in a way fans never saw coming. This wasn't about a villain turning good or a hero turning dark. It wasn't entertainment. This was real. A private battle fought far away from cameras and crowds. A story about discipline, self-awareness, and a giant finally learning how to live inside his own skin. Paul Big Show. Wight had always been different. That difference was both his power and his pain. By 12, he already stood 6'2" and weighed 220 pounds. He looked like a grown man trapped in a child's life. Adults didn't know what to make of him. Parents would pull their kids away when he approached, afraid of this monster kid who seemed too big to be real. Underneath all that size was just a boy who wanted to belong. The rejection hurt, but instead of breaking him, it hardened him. Sports became his outlet. Basketball, football, anything that made his size an advantage. And for the first time, he wasn't the outsider. He was the star. The same body that made him feel alien now made him valuable. That mindset never left him. So when wrestling came along, it fit perfectly. He wasn't just Paul Wight anymore. He became the Big Show, the 500-pound titan who could dominate anyone. It was a persona built for power, and it worked. The audience loved it. The name stuck, and before long, he wasn't just playing the giant. He was living it. For years, he believed his success depended on size. The bigger he got, the better he performed. Or so he thought. But what once made him unstoppable soon became unbearable. Carrying over 500 pounds on a 7-foot frame wasn't strength anymore. It was punishment. His joints ached, his mobility suffered, and the act of simply being the Big Show became a burden. He had built his entire identity around being the largest man in the room. But deep down, he started to wonder if that identity was killing him. Eventually, the realization hit. He didn't need to be the biggest to be great. He didn't need the extra weight to matter. What he needed was balance and the courage to change. That spark came from an unexpected place, a casual conversation with John Cena. It started as harmless banter backstage, just two veterans joking around. But in the middle of their back and forth, Cena made a remark that hit harder than any punch Wight had ever taken. It wasn't mean, just matter of fact, but it stuck. In that moment, Wight felt challenged, not by Cena, but by himself. He decided to prove that a giant could evolve. That week, he began his transformation. It took him just over a year to lose 90 pounds. For someone his size, that was monumental. The weight came off not through grueling workouts. His hip injury made that nearly impossible, but through discipline with food. He completely restructured his diet, replacing comfort eating with commitment. It wasn't easy. Food had always been his safety blanket, his way of coping through holidays, stress, and loneliness. But he learned how to find comfort in healthier ways, how to treat his body with the same respect he demanded from others. Soon, the results spoke for themselves. The belly that once defined his silhouette was gone, replaced by visible abs, something no one thought they'd ever see on the world's biggest athlete. Fans were stunned. Fellow wrestlers couldn't believe it. But for Wight, the transformation wasn't about looks. It was about reclaiming his health, his confidence, and his control. When Cena saw him later, he simply gave a nod of approval. No words, no praise, just silent respect, the kind that comes when someone does something you didn't think they could. Wight laughed about it, but there was pride beneath that humor. He had done the impossible. He had rewritten what it meant to be the Big Show. Because in truth, his biggest fight was never against another wrestler. It was against the image he'd been trapped in for decades. The giant who spent his whole life performing strength had finally found real strength, not in size, but in self-control. Paul Wight no longer needed to be the Big Show to stand tall. He had finally become comfortable being himself. And maybe that's the real story here, that sometimes the heaviest thing a person can carry isn't the weight on their body, but the expectations that come with it. For Paul Wight, shedding that weight meant more than a physical transformation. It meant freedom. The controversies that made fans cringe. Behind every larger-than-life character in wrestling, there's always a story the audience doesn't see. And for Paul "Big Show" Wight, his story isn't all gold belts and victory poses. His career has been filled with jaw-dropping highs, bizarre lows, and moments that left fans wondering what on earth they just watched. From real-life run-ins with the law to on-screen disasters that made even die-hard fans cringe. Big Show's journey proves that being a giant doesn't make you untouchable. It just makes your mistakes harder to miss. Let's rewind the tape. In December 1998, long before he became one of WWE's most recognizable faces, Paul Wight found himself on the wrong side of headlines. The Memphis Police Department arrested him for allegedly exposing himself to a female motel clerk. The incident made waves instantly. A giant in every sense of the word was suddenly painted as a scandal. But the case never stuck. The charge was dropped for lack of evidence, and Wight walked free. Barely 3 months later, controversy knocked again. In March 1999, he was charged with assault after an alleged altercation with a man named Robert Sawyer. The claim was that Wight had broken Sawyer's jaw during an argument in a New York hotel. Wight maintained it wasn't an attack, just self-defense after being shoved and threatened. 3 days in court later, the judge agreed. Not guilty. Case closed. But those early brushes with the law left a stain, the kind that never truly washes off, especially when your life is lived under the limelight. And yet, the chaos didn't end there. Because when Big Show wasn't dealing with headlines outside the ring, he was battling through plenty of questionable creative decisions inside it. WWE loved to use him as a punchline, literally. And while some wrestlers refused to be humiliated for a storyline, Big Show always took one for the team. But not all those moments aged well. Take his infamous "yes" chant phase. In an effort to ride Daniel Bryan's wave of popularity, WWE thought it would be clever to have Big Show adopt the chant for himself while feuding with the Authority. But fans weren't having it. The crowd saw right through it. Chanting "yes" will always belong to Bryan. Big Show's version felt forced, and the audience turned cold. Then came his AEW moment, one that even he admits was a disaster. During a weigh-in segment between Cody Rhodes and Anthony Ogogo, Wight tried to handle the scale like a legitimate official, but nothing went right. The equipment failed, the pacing was awkward, and the whole thing collapsed into chaos. Later, Wight didn't mince words. He called it a freaking disaster, the kind of train wreck that no editing could save. But that wasn't even close to the worst. Who could forget the end of the 2015 Royal Rumble? The night fans booed Roman Reigns and The Rock. Big Show and Kane were booked as the final obstacles for Reigns, eliminating fan favorites one after another. Instead of drama, the match delivered frustration. The crowd turned on the entire thing, and Big Show found himself, once again, the face of WWE's creative misfire. Then there was that unforgettable chairs match against Sheamus. WWE hyped it as an epic showdown of brute strength, and Big Show brought a literal giant chair into the mix. It was meant to be intimidating, but the oversized prop looked more cartoonish than threatening. Fans couldn't decide whether to laugh or cheer. And that wasn't the first time Show found himself in an awkward situation. There was the SmackDown segment where Tori Wilson laughed at his on-screen embarrassment, something Big Show took personally. For an entire episode, he stalked her backstage, leading to a final scene where he nearly threw her off a ledge. Kurt Angle tried to stop him, and ended up being the one thrown off instead. Over the top? Absolutely. But that was WWE in its purest, craziest form. Then came the tranquilizer dart. Yes, you heard that right. In another storyline gone too far, Kurt Angle shot Big Show with a tranquilizer gun, shaved his head while he was knocked out, and left him bald. It was meant to be funny. Instead, it became one of those moments fans mention with a sigh, the kind of thing you can only explain with, Well, it was the early 2000s. But nothing tops the chaos of 2006. Big Show, Vince McMahon, and Shane McMahon are inside Hell in a Cell, with DX, Triple H, and Shawn Michaels waiting to humiliate them. Somewhere between the steel and the madness, the scene turned downright uncomfortable. Big Show, trapped between the ropes, had his gear pulled down as Vince's face was shoved right into his backside. A callback to McMahon's old Kiss My Ass Club gimmick. Sure, but one of the most awkward visuals ever broadcast on WWE TV. Still, not even that can touch his earliest days in WCW, when the absurdity hit a new level. During a 1995 pay-per-view, the Giant, as he was called back then, faced Hulk Hogan in a sumo monster truck match on the roof of a building. The segment ended with Hogan accidentally knocking him off the roof. Fans watched the Giant fall to his death, only for him to show up minutes later, completely fine, and wrestle in the main event. No explanation. Just pure, unapologetic WCW chaos. And just when you think you've seen it all, there's the diaper. Vince McMahon once made Big Show dress as a New Year's baby for a commercial promoting the first Raw of the year. Full diaper, bonnet, the whole thing. Shaw later admitted it was the single most embarrassing thing he had ever done in his career. And honestly, who could argue? But if there's one moment that truly sums up WWE's love for the outrageous, it's the time Big Show was caught making out with Vicky Guerrero on live TV. What was meant to be a shocking love triangle involving Edge, Cena, and Vicky turned into one of the most uncomfortable storylines ever produced. Fans weren't shocked, they were just confused. Still, through every scandal, awkward moment, and downright humiliating segment, Big Show kept showing up. That's what makes his story so fascinating. Most wrestlers would have walked away, but he stayed. Professional, loyal, and committed to entertaining no matter how ridiculous it got. The love life of the Giant, the woman who tamed Big Show's heart. For years, Paul Big Show Wight was known as the Unstoppable Force, a 7-foot mountain of muscle who crushed opponents with ease and towered over everyone who dared stand in front of him. But away from the lights, away from the noise of the crowd chanting his name, there's a softer side to the Giant that most people never see. The side that belongs entirely to one woman, Bess Catramados. Before Bess came into the picture, Big Show's love life was far from perfect. He married his first wife, Melissa Piavas, back in 1997. The marriage, though, didn't go the distance. By 2000, things had started to fall apart, and by 2002, it was officially over. The couple shared one daughter, Sierra, and even though the relationship ended, being a father remained one of the few things that truly grounded him. But life has a strange way of rewriting the script when you least expect it. Just days after his divorce was finalized, Paul Wight remarried, this time to a woman who would completely change his life's direction. Her name? Bess Catramados. Bess wasn't just another love interest, she was the calm in his storm. A former model from Illinois, she met the man the world knew as the Big Show and saw something else entirely. Not the wrestler, not the showman, but the man underneath. Born on July 13, 1973, Bess grew up far from the chaos of the wrestling world. Her childhood in Illinois was simple and grounded. She was a dreamer, a girl who always wanted to see her face on magazine covers and travel the world. And she made it happen. Her natural beauty and elegance carried her into the world of modeling, where she built a solid reputation and lived the kind of life most young girls only dream of. But when she met Paul, everything changed. The glamorous life, the photo shoots, the runway lights, she walked away from all of it to build a different kind of empire. One built not on fame or fashion, but on love, loyalty, and family. Their love story wasn't ordinary, not even close. It was fast, intense, and life-changing. Paul made one of the hardest decisions of his life, leaving behind his first marriage because of how deeply he connected with Bess. And Bess, in turn, made a sacrifice of her own. She stepped out of the spotlight and into his world, a world of grueling travel schedules, endless performances, and unpredictable fame. But she didn't just become his partner, she became his anchor. Behind every great wrestler is someone who keeps them grounded, and for Big Show, that's Bess. While the cameras captured him, battling legends like The Undertaker and John Cena, Bess was behind the curtain, holding their family together, reminding him that life existed beyond the ring. Their chemistry was unshakable, and it wasn't long before fans began to notice how much she influenced his peace and balance. Big Show has often credited her for giving him the stability he needed when fame, travel, and pressure threatened to consume him. Together, they built a life that was surprisingly normal. A cozy home in Tampa, Florida, shared laughter, kids' routines, and quiet nights. They have 2 children together, plus Sierra, Paul's daughter from his first marriage. And though the world sees him as the world's largest athlete, at home, he's simply Dad. Bess embraced motherhood with grace. She put her modeling career on hold, choosing instead to raise their children and stand behind her husband as he faced both the triumphs and trials of his wrestling career. To Paul, she wasn't just his wife. She was his backbone, the steady force that kept him going when the weight of being the Big Show felt too heavy. Their love story even made its way to television in 2020, when Netflix released The Big Show Show. The family sitcom gave fans a lighthearted look into the fictional version of Big Show's home life. While the show was fun and comedic, it carried a dose of truth, a reflection of the real man behind the persona, surrounded by the people who gave his life meaning. Over the years, Bess has remained famously private. She doesn't chase fame, and she's never needed validation from the public. But those who know her, and even those who've seen her from afar, recognize the quiet confidence of a woman who knows her worth. Standing at 5 feet 8 inches, Bess might seem tiny next to her 7-foot husband, but make no mistake, she's every bit as powerful in presence. Together, they've built something rare in the entertainment world, a marriage that has stood the test of time. Over 20 years later, they're still side by side, raising their family, chasing peace instead of fame, and proving that even the biggest stars need a place and a person to call home. Today, Bess Katramados Wight is more than just Big Show's wife. She's his grounding force, his quiet strength, the woman who saw the man behind the giant and chose to love both, because even giants need someone to stand tall for them. Big Show's daughter is even bigger than he is. When your dad is the Big Show, one of the largest and most recognizable wrestlers on the planet, you'd think living in his shadow would be inevitable. But Sierra Wight, his eldest daughter, is proving that big isn't just about size. It's about ambition, presence, and the way you carry yourself. And in that sense, Sierra might just be even bigger than her dad. Born on November 28, 1998, Sierra grew up surrounded by fame, flashing cameras, and the roar of arenas. Yet, she's never let that world define her. Instead of chasing the dizzying fame, she's quietly building her own path. Currently studying at the University of West Florida, Sierra has kept her life refreshingly private. No tabloid drama, no reality show appearances, just focus. Standing at 5 feet 6 inches, with a natural confidence that draws people in, she's got her father's presence without ever needing the stage to prove it. People may know her as Big Show's daughter, but those who meet her say she carries herself with the kind of calm strength her dad spent decades performing. While he dominated the ring, she's carving out her space in the real world, quietly but powerfully. And that's what makes her story so compelling. Sierra doesn't need to be 7 feet tall to stand out. She's already doing it through grace, privacy, and the determination to be more than just her father's legacy. Because sometimes being bigger isn't about height or muscle. It's about outgrowing expectations. And Sierra Wight is doing exactly that. Are you a fan of Big Show? Let us know in the comments below. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Also, click the next video shown on your screen. You will enjoy it.